new economy that we've heard so much about has revolutionized the way big businesses create wealth and value in the new millennium. So what has changed, and is your company keeping pace with the times? Well, now Cracking the Value Code reveals the critical codes companies must embrace in order to create unprecedented market value. Joining us now with more on his strategies for success in the ever-evolving era is Barry Liebert, co-author of Cracking the Value Code. Good morning, Barry. Good to see you.
Good morning, Liz. Great being here.
Thank you for coming. Let's talk first about this Cracking the Value Code. What does this title mean?
It's about how businesses combine tangible and intangible assets to build their business model. It's sort of how they create their economic DNA to produce success in the new economy.
And all these rules have changed now since, what, the last 5 years, would you say?
I think longer than that. I think intangible assets have been around a long time. We've just never thought of them as part of the business model when businesses create success.
How do companies create value, at least the value that you're aiming for?
Well, if you think about investors for a second, they understand that asset allocation, which is the combination of stocks, bonds, cash, and alternative, are the way they create their portfolio. Well, our 10,000 company research said the same thing, that businesses are investors as well, and how they allocate their capital to build their business model determines how successful they'll be.
We have the old asset categories that you first point out. Explain what those are and how they would at least compare as we go on to the new assets. Here are the old, physical and financial.
Well, I think you think about balance sheets as the major reporting measurement system for old assets. It's things and money, plant, property, and equipment, and cash, accounts receivable, investable securities.
Acquisitions, things like that?
Absolutely. And you think about most acquisition strategies, it's about how do they combine their balance sheets.
Now let's get to the new asset categories, what you're talking about that businesses need to sort of focus in on.
Well, I think what we said is that we think businesses have their economic DNA, and they have three more asset classes they have to focus on, which is customer assets, employee and supplier assets, and organizational assets. And those five asset classes together really constitute the economic DNA of a business and its business model.
Would some other, perhaps, intangible assets be, say, the knowledge, at least some of the great employees that you have, the power that the company gleans in its marketplace?
Absolutely. When you think about it, it's either a customer base or how intellectual an employee base is, or the leaders or patents of a company. They're assets, too, no matter how they're measured.
Can you give me some examples, at least for our viewers, so that we can put this into perspective, of some companies that have done well with these new intangible assets?
Sure. AOL is our favorite one because when you think about it, they spend about $4.5 billion building a 23 million subscriber base, but also 110 million instant messenger users. Now, that investment in those assets have produced about $130 billion, $140 billion market valuation. It's not to suggest they built that out of buildings. And it's the same thing for things like Starbucks, that build their asset base out of brand and employees.
Now, when you talk about employees in Starbucks, they take particularly good care of their employees? Is that what you're saying? And that's an asset there?
Absolutely. They go further than that. They offer stock options to everybody. They allow them to have bean stock, and they compensate their people in ways that ultimately reduce their cost of turnover of that particular asset class.
You mentioned AOL for customer asset. What about organizational asset?
Well, our favorite one is Jack Welch and GE, obviously a member of your community here.
Yay!
Yeah, absolutely.
That's Joe Kernan.
There you go,
away.
Great. And you think about it, Jack Welch doesn't appear on anybody's balance sheet, let alone GE's balance sheet. And so if you think, well, how could that be the case? Jack Welch is a great leader and a great asset of GE.
Give me 4 steps of success that our viewers who might run businesses or at least are employees there can aim for when it comes to enhancing value.
Well, I think the 4 steps of success are simple. One is design your business model like you would design your financial portfolio. Think about how you're going to allocate capital to the 5 asset classes when you build your business model. 2 is to essentially manage all the risks of an enterprise. You can destroy your assets one customer, one employee, one leader at a time, just like you can destroy your financial and physical assets.
Okay.
3 is build e-commerce systems. It's hard to connect you and I by, I would say, by mortar. It's a lot easier to use e-commerce to connect you and I and our systems. And 4 is report every source of value so that your investors, your lenders
are aware of that.
Absolutely. Share the knowledge in today's economy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Liebert. The book is called Cracking the Value Code, and the author is Barry Liebert. He is the co-author there. It's one of these business books that is actually very understandable.
Thank you very much for
every
having me
reader.
This morning.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you.